All right, everybody. Welcome to the Combatcast. We are live, just coming off of UFC 315, big fight night this weekend. And guys, if you're watching, you've seen us, like, subscribe. We appreciate it. All right. Before we get into today's show, Chevy, why don't you tell people what we got coming up?
All right, May 24th, there are no UFC fights, so we'll be reviewing this fight card, this Burns versus Morales fight card. And then May 31st, UFC Fight Night, Blanchfield versus Barber. It's a big flyweight matchup, 9 p.m. in the Apex. And then June 7th, UFC 316, Dvalishvili versus O'Malley 2 for the bantamweight belt, 10 p.m., Newark, New Jersey.
Big day for TKO. They're actually doing like it's called Worlds Collide. It's going to be their NXT, and they just bought AAA, Lucha Libre in Mexico. So there's a big event. That's like 3:00. Then there's a WWE main pay-per-view at like 6:00, Money in the Bank. And then UFC at night. So these guys, they're rolling in the money. I'm sure they're going to be really happy that weekend. I know both WWE events are in Los Angeles. I'm assuming Marab and O'Malley's in Vegas. I don't know.
No, Newark, New Jersey.
Newark, New Jersey. Also East Coast. So East Coast, West Coast being taken over by TKO. Speaking of other stuff going on before we kick off the rest of the show, what's going on around the ring? Well, we do have one fight announcement to make. Robert Whittaker versus RDR Rene Di Ridwa, coming off his big victory over Bo Nickel last weekend. He's getting Robert Whittaker now.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about how because he was a former 2-division champion, he might get a good bump up the rankings, because Bo wasn't even ranked yet. So, yeah, he's getting a big bump up to former champion Robert Whittaker.
Mm-hmm.
Very tough fight. I think it's a tough matchup for RDR. Definitely bigger, but I got my money on Whittaker, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with RDR was that he basically had a great matchup with Bo Nickel because of Bo Nickel's inexperience elsewhere. But with Whittaker, you're right, it's a tough match because Whittaker's good everywhere.
Yeah.
So this is just the opposite. And Whittaker's that. The only thing is Whittaker, he's had so many wars. That could be the Ridwer's chance here, but we shall see. I was how do you say his last name?
De Ridder.
Renier
De Ridder.
Renier De Ridder. Thank you. I was just like calling him. I feel like I'm calling him a Batman.
Yeah, I just call him RDR.
RDR. That works. All right. Let's get into UFC 315. Bilal Muhammad versus Jack Della Maddalena. And before we talk about this main card, any other fights on this show you want to talk about, or?
Yeah, I mean, Jasmine Jasdavicius choked out Jessica Andrade. This is 2 straight losses after winning 2 and losing 3 before that. So she's having a tough go lately. But I think this is more about Jasmine, who looked great in her home country of Canada, and she's like put 5 wins together now. So I think people got to start keeping an eye on her. But let's get into this main card because that's what we're all here for. So Benoit Saint Denis versus Kyle Preplik.
Yeah, Saint Denis came out aggressive. Kyle, he wasn't just there to let it payday, though. I thought, he came back, but, in the end, he started to come back a little bit, I thought, in round 2. And before he's down. He's in an arm triangle choke, and his fight's over. So I feel like he's game, but I also just feel like he just isn't in the same class as Benoit Saint Denis. Benoit Saint Denis, man, I mean, this was a guy that was on fire. And then, he ran into a couple tough opponents. I know Dustin Poirier being one of them. And who was his last name?
Hanato Moicano, I believe.
Hanato Moicano, yeah. So, it's just about trying to rebound. But, we're going to have to see him up against elevated competition to see how well he's really improved, right? This was more like a fight to get, I feel like, his confidence back at the end of the day. So I'll let you talk about the fight, but as far as future opponents, Rafael Fiziev, who I know's had almost a similar thing, but I feel like is maybe a few levels up. At least I feel like he is, but maybe we can find out. Let's book the fight.
Patty might be fun too. That might be a fun fight.
Patty, I feel is like due for some bigger fights, but yes, that would be a fun one for sure.
Yeah. So back to this fight, BSD was a big favorite for a reason, obviously. You know, respect to Kyle, stepped in on like 5 days notice or something like that, returning back to the UFC, big opportunity for him. But it was always going to be tough for him. He's a striker first, which he got taken down immediately in that first round and just held down basically. So you know, he did lay in some shots in the second round with BSD coming at him, but he was just miles better on the ground than Kyle. So good for Benoit to get back in the win column. You know, he had lost a couple in a row, like you mentioned. And I hope that they rebook this Joel Alvarez fight because I'm a big fan of that guy. I think people should keep an eye out on him. He's an exciting fighter and he's very dominant. So I think that's a good match, him and Benoit Saint-Denis. So hopefully they'll keep Kyle around for one more at least, because I feel bad to come in, get beat up in your home country, and you know, you're fighting a guy who's miles and miles better than you, or supposedly. So,
all right, appreciate the comments, Scrippo. Be all losing was probably the worst thing that ever happened to Palestine. Well,
yeah, maybe we don't need to click every comment.
I was looking at this first comment.
That's a wild comment. So
David will make sure to read a little more carefully.
All right, moving on. Alexa Grasso versus Natalia Sylvia.
Yeah, Sylvia, she looked great here. Honestly, I was just really impressed. Like, I just thought she looked so much sharper and quicker than Grasso. And honestly, I know you weren't surprised by this. You talked about this last week, but I just figured Grasso, you know, former champ, she was going to be hungry looking in there. And not to say she wasn't, but Naso just looked like the better fighter to me. To me, she should be getting a title shot next against Valentina. Like, I don't think, like, she's the clear choice right now.
Yeah, the divisions, you know, Valentina's fought basically everyone at this point, you know, at the top. So Natalia truly outclassed a recent former champion. So tremendous speed advantage. Her footwork was great. Her striking is very fun to watch. And she's a fun personality. So, yeah, I'm excited for whatever she does next. If she doesn't get the title shot next, I mean, she's still very young. Like, I think she might be the youngest women's fighter on the roster or something like that. So, you know, you don't need to move her along too fast, but she just beat a former champ. So maybe title shots next. All right, moving on. This was a good fight, but a bit of a bummer. Jose Aldo versus Amin Zahabi.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. So Zahabi, I thought Aldo was doing enough to win the fight, but Zahabi came on super strong at the end of this and really dominated, you know, that last round. But did you think he did it? I'll let you talk about this. I think his next opponent, Mario Batista, actually, just want to throw that out there. But what do you think? Do you think he actually won the fight?
I'd have to watch it again. When I watched it, like, I wasn't upset with the decision. I thought it was very close. I think that third round is so hard to score because early on, I mean, you know, Jose was kicking him in the head and he was flying all around. And then once Zahabi got him down, Jose just was so tired that he couldn't even defend elbows just straight on his head. You know, he couldn't even put his hands up. So very tough to score.
I will say, Aldo, of course, retiring after this fight too. I don't want to like not pay attention to that. And I guess maybe that was a good reason to retire too when you think about it. So even if you could argue he won the fight, like he just didn't seem, you know, to have it right there in that moment. And, you know, he had a very difficult weight cut, obviously, and he talked about that. He said it wasn't just a weight cut, but I guess what other thing to say is this is a bummer that this is probably the last Jose Aldo fight, and the guy's one of the all-time greats.
Right. Yeah, we should say this fight was supposed to be at 135. Jose was unable to make the weight. Amin did make 135, and then they changed the weight to 145. So, yeah, clearly Jose having some sort of issues, just saying his body didn't want to cut the weight anymore. You know, as you mentioned, other issues going on, which he didn't talk about, but it was a bummer. You could tell he was very defeated. But I mean, early on, before he got tired, he was looking pretty good.
He was.
You know, he was looking pretty good. So
What?
it's better to go out now while you're still looking pretty good than to, you know,
Yes.
turn into a BJ Penn or something like that.
Absolutely. What other thing to do too, before we get on the next fight, because we didn't talk about this ever, Vitor Belfort going into the Hall of Fame. That was
absolutely.
on this. So cool for Vitor. Absolutely, probably some of the best finishers, TRT Vitor, whatever you want to say, but some of the best finishes in MMA history. That guy.
Yeah, I can't believe he wasn't already in there, to be honest with you. I just assumed that he was. But yeah, finishes over Rockhold. You know, he destroyed Michael Bisping's eye.
Vanderlei.
Vanderlei. Yeah. He's a monster. He fought, they said this in the package, he's fought in like every era of the UFC, you know, the no rules era, the pride era, the current era. So yeah, all the respect to Vitor. He's an absolute monster. Pioneer for sure. He's in the Pioneer wing, so very, very, perfect setting for him. So, all right, moving on. Co-main event: Valentina Shevchenko versus Manon Fiorot.
Manon Fiorot came to fight. I thought she did a good job, but I thought Valentina, once again, like, God, it's probably overstating it to say it's like she's like the women's MMA equivalent of Floyd Mayweather, but like she just really knows how to like read her opponent as time goes on. I feel like she does enough to get the victory. You know, so don't get me wrong, like she's had some finishes in her career too, and she's great, but there's also this element to her game where as the fight goes on, it seems like she knows how to like read her opponent, dissect it, and pull off the victory. I thought she did enough to win here, but I thought it was a close fight. This could be a fight down the road we see again. It wasn't like, I wouldn't say it was super exciting or anything, but it just, it was a close one. Like I said earlier, I think Silva should be the one. Now Silva should be the next one to fight Shevchenko. At some point, maybe Shevchenko, before she retires, deserves a shot to go up in weight class. But right now with Kayla Harrison and Pena next and Amanda Nunes
talking about comeback,
yeah. I mean, so let's just make another fight for her. But yeah, I thought great performance by Valentina overall.
Yeah, I didn't think the fight was really that close. You know, it turned. Fiorot is a kickboxer, and she basically got turned into. She's a straight kickboxer, and she got turned into a wrestler. So, I never really thought she had much of a chance during the fight. I mean, once her nose was broken in that first round too, you could tell that was affecting her a lot. So. Same thing with the Justin Gaethje Max Holloway fight. That when Max finished that first round, that spinning kick and broke his nose, it changed the whole fight. You know, you can't breathe. Anytime you get touched there, it's like a flash. So, you know, maybe they run it back again at some point and she doesn't get her nose broken in the first round. But as far as Valentina, she did look like she has slowed down a tiny bit. You know, she is in her late 30s for sure. Yeah. She's got a lot of fights, a lot of Muay Thai fights before this. But I think all that experience is, you know, lends to what you were talking about, where she just seems to figure out a way to win. Very high fight IQ. So I think it's going to have to be a wrestler that beats Valentina. You know, Natalia, I'm very high on her, and she would have a tremendous speed advantage. But I don't see a kickboxer striker beating Valentina at this point. So, that being said, I don't know how many more Valentina has left. Like you said, chances of her going up to 135, not super great right now, at least. And she has a lot of fights. She's been around a long time. She's cleaned out most of the division. So I'm not sure what's next for her. All right. Main event. Bilal Muhammad versus Jack Della Maddalena.
JDM. I mean, I said last week, I thought, you know, styles make fights, and I thought that he'd be able to neutralize some of the clinching and wrestling, and, you know, he would have the edge in striking. That being said, man, Bilal, you know, like, he not only did he come to fight, like, this was a very exciting fight. I love the meme somebody posted in our group where it was borrowing from the Avengers with Thanos. Did you fight exciting? Yes. What did it cost you? Everything. Know, because maybe Bilal, maybe he should have tried to shoot a few more takedowns, though, right? But would it matter? Do you think JDM, was going to be able to keep stopping it, or what do you think?
Well, first of all, I thought JDM's takedown defense was great.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, Bilal didn't do what made him champ. He waited until the third or fourth round to even start really threatening with real takedown attempts. So, and by then he was tired, and JDM had kind of beat him up already, and JDM was feeling himself for sure. So, Bilal wanted to prove that he could be an exciting fighter and all this. And, like you said, what does it cost you? And, he's 36 years old and he's going to the back of the line now. And we know he's not the most exciting fighter, not the most marketable fighter. Let's say that. He's not the most marketable fighter. And the UFC does not want him to be champion. Right. So, he's going to have to either start knocking a bunch of people out or submitting them, or he's got to win minimum 3 or 4 to get back to a title shot. So, probably not going to happen for him, unfortunately. I'm a fan of the guy. And I think I said this in the group chat too, but it's like, he wanted his, hometown Chicago camp to experience a champ camp, training camp. So he didn't go train with Khabib. He didn't have Khabib in his corner and all that. Khabib would not have allowed him to just go out there and try to box JDM for 2.5 rounds. He would have been calling for takedowns, and that could have changed the career path for Bilal. Honestly, I think if he had attempted the takedowns more, that could have worn JDM down a little bit more, because he did land on him. His boxing wasn't terrible, but
it's a close fight. That's what I'm saying.
His fight IQ, I thought his fight IQ was going to bring him through this, and he did not display that. So, what he did display is he has an excellent chin, because he ate a lot of heavy shots. His face was all cut up and bruised, and he was still pushing forward. So, all the respect to Bilal. JDM is excellent. He looked great. His striking was amazing. Like I said, takedown defense is great, but probably fighting Islam next. A little bit different. Game plan coming your way, I think. You
think? He'll be the bigger guy, I would think.
I think he's got a very good chance versus Islam. He said he's going to get that one back for Volk, which, I like Islam, but I would like to see JDM win that, and send Islam back down to 155, or we can see Topuria and him fight or something. But
same.
Yeah. So
I'm hoping
we'll see. Though. If not, it's got to be Ian Gary or Shavkat if Shavkat's back. So there are contenders in line. Bilal's not getting an immediate rematch. This was his first.
No, even Sean O'Brady, who got finished by Bilal but had an impressive performance last time. Like, I'd imagine him.
Right, I think he's like number 1 right now. So
yeah, and I think Ian Gary's gonna be right there. Shavkat, like you said, and Usman's got another fight coming up.
Buckley, Buckley and Usman are fighting. Yeah, so there's
I want to back of the line. Honestly, so I don't know how big he is, but this point in his career, maybe it's just a lot.
Yeah, he looked real jacked in the cage. By the way, he looks super thick, but I don't know. He's got to do something, because trying to be exciting for the fans, all that talking shit online got to him apparently. So I feel bad for the guy.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's a tough break, just to be where he is at this point in his career. That's why I think maybe middleweight, because you could at least maybe get a big matchup right away, and you could be a fresh matchup if you got to win and be, fighting a champion. But we'll see how it goes. Either way, excited about JDM and Islam, and I'm excited about Topuria and Charles Oliveira. Looks like potentially he's going to be the fight now too. Ilya, I like the matchup with him and Islam if that eventually happens, if Islam doesn't beat JDM. But I do have to say, Charles Oliveira is no gimme, especially when you think about Topuria is going up in weight here, and this is about as tough as a matchup as you can really get. A guy that can, strike really well, excellent chin, can always come back, and tons of submissions.
The most submissions, holds a record. Yeah, so he's very dangerous off his back. I think Topuria is so confident he's not worried about where the fight's gonna go.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a very good fight. I am very excited for that fight, that matchup as well. So I'm rooting for Charles. I know he's getting near the end of his career. Topuria still has a lot left, so that's an exciting fight.
All right, let's talk about this weekend's fight night right here. Michael Morales and Gilbert Burns. I was going to co-main event here for a second. Michael Morales, Gilbert Burns. Michael Morales undefeated. Any other fights you want to talk about before we get to the main event and co-main event?
Yeah, on the prelims, Tisha Pennington versus Luana Pinheiro. That's, I think, leading off the entire card. That's a fun fight. And Jared Gordon versus Thiago Moises. That's another fun fight on the prelims. But let's get into this co-main event. There's not a whole lot going on with this card, though. This is a 7 p.m. Apex card, though, so we like those, a little earlier for us here on the East Coast. But all right, Rodolfo Bellato versus Paul Craig.
All right, Bellato is 12-2, 7 KOs, 4 subs, 1 decision. Has won 4 out of last 5. Had a draw with Jimmy Crute his last fight. So
majority draw, yep.
Yeah, 1-0-1 in the UFC. Paul Craig, 17-9-1, 4 KOs, 13 subs, 100% finishing weight. He's lost his last 3 in a row, though. He's only won 1 out of his last 6. The thing with Paul is he's just fought a lot more tougher competition. I feel like Paul's career could be on the line here in the UFC right now with so many, despite the fact he's been an exciting fighter, so many losses in a row. He's not a former champion like that. He really needs to get this win against a hungry guy who's had some success recently. That being said, maybe I'm just going with my heart, but I hope that Paul Craig finds a way to get the win here, and I hope he gets a submission because that's just what Paul does if he's going to win. I'll say round 3, Paul Craig submission.
Yeah, we haven't seen much of Rodolfo yet, so it's hard to say if he's going to be able to beat a very difficult vet in Paul Craig. So, especially on the ground. I mean, he's a KO guy. Paul Craig's been hit and knocked out a few times in the UFC, even lately. So, we just haven't seen Rodolfo on the ground. So I got to pick Paul Craig. He's the most dangerous guy above Charles, in weight class. So I'll say round 1 sub, but I agree with you. Paul Craig needs this win more. Not only has he lost a bunch, but he had that terrible fight with Bo Nickel, that was just so boring and everyone hated it so much. So, that'll put you on the chopping block too. So
yeah,
let's go Paul Craig. I say round 1 sub.
Let's
wish it into existence here. So all right, main card or main fight here. Number 8 Gilbert Burns versus number 12 Michael Morales.
Sandy Burns wants to know Burns and Morales. We're going to tell you. All right, Michael Morales is 17-0, 12 KOs, 1 subs, 4 decisions, 5-0 in the UFC. Great record. Gilbert Burns, though, 22-8, 6 KOs, 9 subs, 7 decisions. He's lost 3 in a row now as well, and he's won 2 out of his last 5. He's almost in that Paul Craig kind of territory, but Gilbert, he's been in title fights. He's been super exciting. I don't feel like
fighting the top guys, though. Paul Craig's not fighting the top guys.
Yeah, so I don't feel he's quite in there. He's more like if he loses this weekend, maybe the next one he'll have to worry about. But yeah. This is kind of the showcase for Michael Morales, I feel like, right? This is going to be to see if he can take that next step against a guy like Gilbert Burns. I've been impressed. I've seen Michael Morales a few times. Gilbert's so strong everywhere. It's kind of hard to go against a veteran until I see it, but my gut is telling me this is going to be Michael Morales's, day. I don't know if he's going to be able to finish a guy like Gilbert, though. I'm going to say this goes all 5 rounds. and I'll pick Morales by decision.
Yeah, obviously Morales, super dangerous striker versus anyone, and Gilbert has a chin, but he is willing to engage in a war like we saw when he fought Usman or Khamzat. I've seen some training footage of him, and he looks like he's in the best shape that I've ever seen him in. But he's 38 years old, and Michael Morales is 25. He's super dangerous, like I said. So it hurts me. It hurts me. I'm rooting for Gilbert Burns, but I think that Morales puts it on. I'm going to say round 2 KO for Morales. But we haven't seen Morales in 5 rounds. So if it goes past round 3, I got to pick Gilbert. But I don't think it does. I'm going to say Morales round 2 KO.
All right. Well, there you go. We'll see what happens this weekend. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Actually, Chevy, why don't we tell people we got coming up?
All right, May 24th, we'll be reviewing this Burns versus Morales fight card. And then May 31st, UFC Fight Night, Blanchfield versus Barber. That's 9 p.m. from the Apex. And then June 7th, UFC 316, Dvalishvili versus O'Malley 2, 10 p.m., Newark, New Jersey.
All right, some good fights. But this weekend, it's Morales versus Burns, UFC Fight Night. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe.